So what's the big problem with wealth creation? How do people like us, who didn't inherit a boatload of money, who are investing and building wealth from our own blood, sweat and tears, how do we invest in a way that gives us remarkable results and become financially free before retirement age? I don't know about you, but I am sick of hearing from wealth gurus and experts who don't walk their own talk and prescribe strategies that are a one-size-fits-all approach. For self-made people like you and me, I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be superhuman or already wealthy to reach financial freedom earlier than 65. This is the Alternative Investing Podcast. Hey guys, so in today's episode, I want to unpack a quote by Jim Rohn, who says that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I've heard another version of this, which is show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Really where I want to start with is this is a very powerful and probably oversimplified statement. I think life is significantly more complex than this, but I want to actually unpack this statement and tell you exactly why this could be one of the most powerful motivators and causes for growth when it comes to wealth and investing in your world. I think the intention behind this quote is that the people you spend time with influences the person you eventually become, for sure. And it can elevate you or it can bring you down. The reason that I'm creating this particular version of the podcast is I was talking to a group of young budding investors yesterday morning, and we were talking about a whole bunch of things, but I'm building out a course at the moment to help young investors actually work out how to get the most traction, get their foot in the door on their first property so that they can set themselves up for financial success. And we were going through a whole bunch of things like, where do you feel stuck? What are you frustrated about? What are you kind of unsure of? What do you want more information on? Because I really want to make this as powerful and punchy as possible. And one of the things that came up was, it was sort of floated by one person and then the others all agreed, is that they didn't have people in their immediate circle that they could have good quality conversations with about the topic of money and wealth. And then someone else asked the question, well, what do you do if you don't have friends that have the same money values and wealth aspirations as you? And one other idea that I'm thinking of that was floated was, when you're at high school, you've got this very narrow group of people that you can choose from to be friends with. And often when you leave school or you leave university, you can recognize that actually that maybe they weren't, really on the same page as you as far as life goals and life values. And they were just friends at that time. And, the question came up around, should you ditch them? And we can laugh at sort of the simplistic nature of these questions. But the truth of the matter is, I know that some of the people that I work with, older, quite seasoned people who maybe have had some degree of financial success already, are sometimes asking the same question. So that's why I thought this would be a really valuable podcast today, to actually pull it apart a little bit and give you maybe some practical tips on how you could use some insights into growing your wealth and your network. So I want to kind of share with you, to start with, just a couple of studies, because I think this is always a good place to start. There was a major study done by Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler, and it was one of the largest and longest running health studies ever done. And what they did was they started analyzing the data from the perspective of health, and they specifically started with, let's look at obesity. And according to their results, and this is fascinating, if a friend of yours becomes obese, then you yourself are 45% more likely to gain weight over the next 2 to 4 years. And here's the thing that sort of blew my mind. If a friend of a friend becomes obese, your likelihood of gaining weight increases by about 20%, even if you don't know that friend of a friend. And the effect continues out one person more. If a friend of your friend develops obesity, you are still 10% more likely than a random person to gain weight as well. So in other words, your friends make you fat, but so do their friends, and so do the friends of the friends. Now that is a mind-blowing result. Then they went, well, what else can we look at with all the data we have? And they looked at smoking, and they found the same thing. If your friend smokes, you're 61% more likely to be a smoker yourself. If a friend of your friend smokes, you're 29% more likely to smoke. And if a friend of a friend of a friend smokes, it's 11% increase in your probability of smoking. And so the final piece that I wanted to share with you was they started to go, okay, well, what about happiness? And no surprise, they said if you have happy friends, then you are much more likely to be happy. But if a friend of a friend of a friend, so the third degree separation, is happy with their life, you have a 6% greater chance essence of being happy. What that tells us is we do not live in a vacuum. And the implication of this, along with other similar studies, is that it's not just the circles that you keep that make a difference, the circles of the friends that you keep and their friends, bit of a flow-on effect on a number of levels. So it is true, in my opinion, and then this is supported by these studies, that you absolutely need to be deliberate about the circles you maintain. Without leveling up your circle of friends, it's really hard to experience growth of any variety. It's hard to grow your wealth. It's hard to be healthier. It's hard to be more successful. The point that I would make is that you don't just need to be more deliberate about who you're spending time with. You need to kind of have in the context of your mind that your 1 degree and 2 degrees of separation, a circle of influence, can actually ripple back to you. I would say, going back to the original quote, you are not the average of just 5 people that you surround yourself with. It's way bigger than that. And I think it's really not helpful to be very binary about this. It's not black and white. So if I think about some of the questions that I flagged from that young group earlier, I think about my own journey. I am a sentimental person. People laugh at me because I cry in soppy movies and I can be very nostalgic. I'm a loyalist by nature, and I have been very sad at different times in my life by either the loss of a friendship or just the drifting apart of friendships. But as I've become older, and certainly I extrapolate this to most areas of my life, I think I've become more pragmatic. And one of the things that I have definitely embraced as an idea is sometimes there are relationships for seasons. Yesterday I was asked how I view this concept of building a network of 5 closest people and what to do about old friends that maybe aren't fit for that. My response was, sometimes in life the season lends itself to different types of friendships, and then the season ends. It's time to grow that circle. And so I don't think in a binary term of either you're my friend and now you're not. It's more that if I'm interested in a particular area of life, if I want success in a particular area of life, then I've got to mindfully select people who are going to help me grow in that space. And I'll give you a non-wealth example of this. This time last year, I was getting very frustrated with my fitness and my weight. And I tried a bunch of stuff, and I just, for obvious reasons, I was consuming YouTube videos and I just wasn't getting anywhere. And so I have a friend, a good friend, who is in phenomenal shape. And in conversation with her, I was able to get a hold of her body conditioning coach's details. And so I've got in touch with this guy, Steve, and he has been phenomenal for me. It's a relationship that I've paid for, so there's a commercial aspect to it. But there was a lot of mindfulness in the pursuit of that relationship, which was really important to me at the time and still is. And I look at the journey that I've been on with him and the impact that he's had in my world. If you extrapolated that out to all areas of your life, imagine the sort of success that you would have. When I think about what can we conclude from all of this and what can you as a listener get out of this, I think there's a couple of points I'll make. Number one, I really want to drive this home. It is super hard to level up if you don't stretch your circle of influence. And that does not mean you need to ditch your friends, but it does mean you need to seek connections to people who are more likely to help you tip the scales in your favor when it comes to success. Sometimes you need to seek out paid relationships. Sometimes they can be organic, but in wealth, relationships, health, any area of your life you want success, you've got to be actively thinking about what is it that you need in your world in order to lift your horizons and move forward. Because I can tell you now, in my own example, if I'd just kept on watching YouTube videos on how to get in shape and lose weight, I don't think I would have done it. So for me, having that direct relationship made a whole lot of difference. Second thing I would say is I like to think of friendships rather than relationships that are for purely commercial reasons. I have definitely ebbed and flowed in my efforts around growing my circle of influence. But one of the most uncomfortable things when I was growing up, or when I say growing up or, evolving as an adult, was often you'd have to go to seminars and conferences and things where you're in a room full of people you don't know. And that can be very daunting. I know that I used to find that quite challenging. I stumbled across a strategy, or I kind of invented a strategy that suddenly gave me great comfort in how I was going to tackle that. And simply, it's around every time I go to an event where there's any opportunity to meet people, my goal is just to meet one person and have one conversation where I feel a deep sense of connection, where there's a high probability that that will grow into a friendship. Obviously, there's work that needs to be done after the event, but I see a lot of people flitting around and having these very superficial conversations because they're looking for a quick commercial connection, maybe an exchange of business cards or LinkedIn profiles. That's it. And for me, that is not the essence of building relationships that are lasting. So that's my tip on that. I think on the subject of having people around you that help you level up, it's absolutely essential. It doesn't need to be 5, probably not, but it does need to be a very conscious exercise. When I think about the people who are joining Freedom Warrior, which is the community that I run, I think the reason they join in the first instance is they want access to me, they want the guidance and education, they want access to my network, they want access to some epic quality deals. But if I'm really honest, I think the reason they stay is because of the super high quality conversations that we have in our community that they struggle to have within their own circle of friends and networks outside of our community. So that is something that I think is super valuable, is find just 1 or 2 people that you can have really high quality conversations with about money and wealth, because that is what will move the needle. That is what will kind of shift your awareness so that you can experience growth and take all the right actions. Now, the final thing I want to suggest to you or talk to you about is what matters to me when I'm consciously growing my network. I'm conscious of 3 things when I'm meeting people and I'm selecting, if you like, people who I would like to be mentored by or that I want to learn from. Number 1, do I feel aligned with this person from a values perspective? Do I like them? And one of my litmus tests, if you like, is could I have them over to my house for dinner? The second question that I kind of like to ask myself is, do they see the world differently to me? Will their worldviews help me open my mind to new ideas that will help me evolve as a person, including as an investor? And then the third question I'm asking is, do they have the results that I want in some capacity? And if I can say yes to all those questions, then I'm really much more interested in honing in and investing in growing that relationship. So that is where I want to leave it today, guys. I think just to really drive this home, I think the original question and conversation around this topic was, are you the average of 5 people you spend the most time with? And the answer is obviously yes and no. I think that because we spend so much time at work, it's really important that we're conscious of this, because if 40 hours a week goes into spending time with people you don't particularly like, that is going to stifle your growth. And what I want more than anything else for all of you is the ability to level up and start to live life by design. So guys, this is a really important topic. I hope you found today useful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. You've been listening to the Alternative Investing Podcast. If you're feeling frustrated that despite doing everything right in the property investing playbook and you're no closer to financial freedom, then head on over to incosiwealth.com to learn more about how you can use alternative investments to catapult your investing income and blend strategies to shave decades off your timeline to financial freedom. See you on the next episode.